May I offer you a list of things not to say to a grieving friend? The list is much longer than I can share in just a few minutes, but here are three common examples that must be avoided. The first thing not to say is any sentence that begins with the phrase, at least. If your friend has lost a child, please don't say, at least you have other children to love. At least you can get pregnant again. At least you had your son for 21 years. If your friend has lost a spouse, please don't say, at least you can still find another partner. When my son died 2 weeks after the wedding, his 22-year-old bride turned widow often heard this. At least you're young enough you can find love again. While remarriage may be quite likely, it hurts to hear someone say, at least you can find another husband. Please don't say anything that begins with at least because it diminishes the loss. It makes the griever feel like they're supposed to see the silver lining in their heartache. When you acknowledge that your friend's loss is worthy of your empathy and compassion, that is helpful. And secondly, don't use words of comparison, such as, I know exactly how you feel. You've now made it all about you. You're comparing your loss to theirs. Empathy requires that we focus on the hurting person. Avoid comparing losses between your grieving friend and others, such as saying, I know of someone who's had a far greater loss than yours. You lost one parent. I know someone who lost both parents in the same accident. That would be so much harder. Andy Stanley has famously said this, there is no win in comparison. Here's a little secret I would like you to know. Every person experiencing grief feels like their loss is the worst loss. Words that compare their grief to someone else's just isn't helpful. A third thing not to say is, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Call me if you need anything. You might be thinking, what? I'm not supposed to say that? I thought that was a kind approach. Well, think of it this way. Your grieving friend has just had their whole world turned upside down by a devastating loss. The simplest things are difficult to process. Now you're putting the onus on them to figure out what you can do to help and when? That's too much pressure. It's not likely that they will call, even if they do need your help. There are too many gaps in your offer. Instead, you could do this. You could call them and say, I'm at the grocery store. What can I pick up for you and your family? I'd be happy to drop it off. Well, I hope these three ideas will help you be more confident in knowing what not to say to your grieving friend.